National President of FLO, the women's wing of FICCI. As President of FLO, Janapi's focus is on sustainable livelihood for women's economic empowerment. Janapi is an entrepreneur and a co-founder of two national tourism award-winning companies, Jungle Travels India and Assam Bengal Navigation Company under the JTI Group. Her companies are encompassed in travel and hospitality, boutique river cruising, small group specialized tours, tea and textile, all of which empower young people's livelihoods, especially women and their communities. Janapi, I'd like to request you to please say a few words to us.
Thank you very much. So good evening, YFLO. Good evening, everybody. YFLO Delhi is a 16-year-old teenager of the FLO family, growing steadily over the years. YFLO Delhi brings to us the hopes and expectations of the millennials and constantly adds value to our growth as the collective voice of 8,000 businesswomen, entrepreneurs, professionals, and the like spread across the country. On behalf of the 17 chapters of FLO Pan India that I represent as its 37th national president, I'm delighted to welcome Anita Dongre, the Queen of Prep, and Sujata Asamon, a self-confessed mindful fashion advocate and a fashion industry insider for over 2 decades. Coming from where I do, as the first FLO president from Assam, representing FLO's Northeast chapter, my core love is for sustainability, and that is so good to see that Anita personifies this. So my mission in FLO has been to promote sustainable practices and sustainable livelihood for women's economic and upliftment. That is why, Anita, your message of sustainability in the world of fashion so resonates with our mission. Most of us know of you as an icon and fashion trailblazer who has built the largest fashion house in India. Very few probably know that your Anita Dongre Foundation has given countless rural women in India an equal voice by providing them the livelihood opportunities and the skill training long before this became the right thing to do. A vegan activist and environmentalist and revivalist of local crops, you advocate compassionate living, being closer to nature, and being mindful of the environment. I must congratulate YFLO Delhi, Karishma Manga Devi, and her team for giving us this fabulous opportunity to listen to Anita Dongre up close and personal, and to be moderated by Sujata Asamon, who herself believes in the handmade in India story. Today, redressing fashion, creativity, commerce, and consciousness. All of us at FLO Pan India now look forward to sit back and listen to your story. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Janapi. I have for rather long now been an admirer of Anita Dongre's work. For me, it has always been her ingenuity, her compassion for process, people, and planet, and ethics above all, which has certainly set her a cut above the rest. While I had reached out to Anita's teams to figure out her date, I also had no doubt on who would be my first choice to moderate this conversation. A very special and a warm welcome to our moderator, Sujata Asumal. Sujata was the founding editor-in-chief of Harper's Bazaar India. Having worked at Elle India, Indian Express, and Verve, she has been a leading voice in the Indian fashion industry. Sujata moved to Dubai almost 5 years ago as the consulting fashion editor of the region's first English daily newspaper, Khalij Times. Currently, Sujata contributes to the region's leading newspaper, Arab News, as well as international trade digital platforms such as Business of Fashion and Vogue Business, and is also the contributing editor at Vogue India. An advocate of mindful fashion, fall 2019 saw the launch of Sujata's first book, 100 Iconic Bollywood Costumes, outlining a key visual history of Indian cinematic fashion. Sujata, thank you for joining us today, and I request you to introduce Anita and to take this dialogue further with her. Thank you.
Thank you, Karishma, for such a beautiful and wonderful introduction. And thank you for thinking that I was first of mind to moderate Anita Dongre. It has been my privilege to know her for 20 years and to cover her for 20 years. And she's someone I consider a personal mentor and who I WhatsApp whenever I need any information on Indian crafts and textiles, because it's something that's truly passionate and it's really part of her ethos. Of course, her journey started, as you said, as the Queen of Pret in the mid-90s. Today, the House of Anita Dongre has 5 brands, including Grassroots, which is a brand which is all about sustainability, and of course her flagship brand, Anita Dongre, which really is committed to craftsmanship and to keeping Indian craft heritage relevant and contemporary. She has stores all over India, including a flagship store in New York. So she's really our international ambassadoress of fashion. Her company has received funding from General Atlantic. It's the same company that funds Tory Burch. She's India's commercially most successful creative brand, but she's built on a ground of consciousness. It's a very unique formula that she has. A professionally run company. Her family is still very much part of the company. Anita is managing to stay in this new world order, but stay true to her own very traditional ethos. And this is what makes me appreciate her so much. And when I think of the House of Anita Dongre, Anita, I think of how you built this creative business that is so commercially successful, but has a conscience. How do you manage, and how did you manage to tick all these boxes? Anita, I think you have to unmute yourself, please. Sorry, you're muted.
I did. Okay, there.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for all the lovely, kind introduction. And it's just lovely chatting with all of you. I think let's keep this very interactive. Sujata, coming to your first question is, how do I balance, I think you said, how do I balance the commercial side of the
being
business?
India's most commercial house with this complete ethos of consciousness. And of course, you're a creative business and you're all about taking the creative story of India forward.
So I think, first of all, businesses are created to sell. I mean, you're selling a product, and which is why you have a business. But I think today businesses have to relook at the way they do businesses, primarily because the planet around us the number of people in this planet has doubled. I think in 1970, if I'm not mistaken, we were a population of about 3.7 billion.
Mm-hmm.
I think in 2020, we are about 7.7 billion. And at the rate we are growing, we're going to touch 9 or 10 billion. Now, this is scary. 30 years ago, when businesses were created, it was all about creating a lot of product and creating consumerism. I think today, especially because of even what's happened in the last 6 months to the world because of COVID, companies need to rethink about balancing commerce with also balancing social sustainability. Companies need to think about becoming socially and environmentally responsible besides creating profits. And I think that is the only way forward in the future. I'm not saying it has to be a socialist society, but it can be a capitalist society, but a capitalist society with a conscience.
So
a capitalist society,
profit, correct?
Yeah, a capitalist society that grows, but not at the cost of the environment and people. And I would say environment and people are the 2 most important factors here. And I think we all need to do that because we are just so many of us. And when you are so many of you, mass consumerism has to stop. And I think this is also nature's way of doing what it's doing, of making people realize and say that it can't be all about buy, 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 buy. So I know, though I'm in the business of selling, I would still tell everybody that don't buy more than what you need. And for companies to run, and just for companies to also start thinking, just thinking sustainably. It has to be that way. There's no other way forward than for companies. I've always thought on these lines, and in the last few years, just looking at what's happening around me, it reaffirms my decision day in and day out that I have to be more responsible.
So the topic of sustainability and ethical fashion, it's really very complex for the layperson. There's carbon emissions. There's carbon emissions, there's water use, there's pollution, there's land, there's waste, there's air pollution, and of course, as you mentioned, the human cost and the whole human thing. How it's also interlinked. How does any designer today or anybody who wants to get into sustainable decide which one to focus on? Because it must be impossible to focus on it all.
I know, with so many materials available, I think young designers today really need to do their research. They need to think. There are a lot of agencies they can take and help of. Like we as a company are members of the Sustainable Apparel Coalition, which is an international body that we can reach out to, who advises us which are the fabrics that are sustainable, which are the fibers that are not, which are the fibers and how they are manufactured and which do not harm the environment. So there is plenty, today it's the digital age, everything is out there, information is available. I think as a young designer, she has to learn about what she's using and use what her conscience allows her to use. Like we as a company don't use leather. We never used animal skin, but I still don't have a leather line because I'm vegan and I don't believe in using animal skin. So I think every designer, whatever material she's using, she's got to look at her own conscience and say, this is what I'm using. This is the impact this material has on the environment. Am I okay with it? Am I not? Do I have a more sustainable option? And it's a process, I'm not going to, House of Anita Dongre is on the way to, is learning every day. Every week I have a meeting with my sustainability officer and we do it one step at a time. We have goals which are short-term, long-term. 3 months ago, we replaced the entire plastic that we use for packaging with biodegradable plastic. The next step is how do we take all our packaging and make it sustainable? So it's a process, and I think everybody has to. It's not something you can do overnight, but as long as you start on that journey of sustainability and say, I've got milestones that I'm going to cover, and in say X number of years, I think I'm going to be carbon neutral. It's everybody's journey, every company's journey, and every individual's journey at a personal level.
So for a consumer also, it's very confusing because, of course, even if you look at something like cotton, and we probably all think cotton's a great fabric, and it's, as a consumer, you will go for something in cotton thinking, oh, it's so much better than going for polyester or something. But cotton drinks water. It's such a third, and it spews up toxins if it's not grown properly. How does
10,000 liters of water to grow 1 kilo of cotton?
Correct.
So cotton is a very, very difficult crop. So today there are amazing fibers that are easier on the planet. So cotton was great to probably have 50 years ago when the world had enough water. Today water is going to become one of our scarce resources. It already is. They're predicting water wars between countries in the next few decades. So obviously from cotton, you now need to switch to, or you need to work with agencies like Better Cotton who are growing cotton more sustainably and intelligently.
For a consumer, how do they read the label? What is your suggestion for a consumer to become more responsible?
So we have started, we've affiliated ourselves with Better Cotton, which is an organization that's growing cotton sustainably and intelligently. So all our cotton is now being sourced through Better Cotton and Better Cotton. And I think individuals need to learn how to look at labels. If a company just says that this is cotton and it's sustainable, consumers need to question it. It either has to be organic or it has to be Better Cotton. Better Cotton is one step, towards going completely organic. And then there are so many lovely, fibers that we are now experimenting with. There are a lot of cellulosic fibers that use very little water. There's modal, there is bamboo, there is hemp. So customers also need to start looking at fabrics and buying them and supporting brands who are creating these fibers that are more sustainable.
As I said, how does a consumer really know? Because while yours is very ethical, there's so many brands I know who just say that they use the word sustainable, but you don't really know the sustainable.
Yeah, it's the most misused. It's the most misused.
Which is why I use the word conscious with you and not sustainable, because for me, how is fashion sustainable? Because sustainable means you're regenerating.
Sujata, I think this is a great question, and I think the fashion industry should lobby, and I think we should have some kind of a rating agency in India that's very fair and that kind of rates a garment on genuine, sustainable reasons. I think a rating agency is a great idea, and I think time has come to in India to have that just as a sustainable rating and nothing else. So it can cover all fibers.
So for the women here, if you had to give them one tip for their fashion wardrobe or for their shopping, what would be your one tip to be a more responsible consumer?
I think today in India, I would request all the women to buy a handcrafted garment, a garment that's probably produced in a village of India, that's produced in rural India, because what we really need to do is to support rural India. So anything that's hand woven in a village, or anything that's hand embroidered in a village, I would really implore all the FICCI members to make that the first choice, because there are so many good karma points you get. You're supporting, most probably a woman artisan in a village. I firmly believe in taking employment back to villages, because a woman working part-time from home, besides doing her housework and the farming, she gets a great source of income. It takes migration away from villages to overcrowded cities, which is what today in COVID times. This is exactly what we need. So buying a garment that's produced in rural India, for me, ticks all the checkpoints.
So this is a very important topic, the future of the textiles business, because really this is of critical importance to India's welfare, because it is the second, it's the second most employing industry in India. You have a workforce that's almost 3,000 people strong. And this, your factories have been shut, I think, for over 4 months now. In this time, you have been very aware of how to treat your employees. You even, I know, started a fund for workers almost as soon as lockdown was started, so that their health could be taken care of. What is the position now, 4 months into, and really with no light at the end of the tunnel? What is the position for you right now?
I don't know, Sujata. We shut the head office on March, I think, 18th. And so it's over 4 months. I don't see the lockdown getting lifted by end of July in Mumbai. The head office is in Navi Mumbai. From the looks of it, it's going to be mid-August to end August. Right now, we're working with only 10% capacity. Because manufacturing units are allowed to only bring in 10% of their workforce. It's difficult. It's difficult times. I'm hoping that I'm just hoping things come back to normal, hopefully by September, October, and we get a grip on the situation and have herd immunity, or I don't know. It's such a complicated pandemic that such few people are able to even understand how do we overcome this and get out of this, or a vaccine comes in. But the next 3 to 4 months is certainly extremely challenging.
So you have 5 brands, as I've mentioned. You have, of course, Anita Dongre, which is probably more known as the flagship brand and the more of the bridal clothes. And then you have And, which is the Pret line. You even have a jewelry line, and you have a sustainable line, Grassroots. Do you think the fact that you have had so many different lines has helped you be better covered than people who say only do couture, only do Pret, or is there
no, it's just that many more babies to look after. No, and sustainability for me runs across all the brands. To be Grassroots is a socially sustainable brand, and Grassroots we support craft and support work in rural India. But otherwise, I'm trying to push all my brands towards becoming as sustainable as possible. I've set a 3-year goal for all of them. So for me, sustainability really works all through. And well, it's just managing more. That's it.
But what I've always admired about you is the agility of your brand. I know that you've had like a timeless and an interpret, and then you put them into your main lines because they didn't quite work out the way you wanted, and that's fine. Is there any lessons you've learned through this? Anything that you've learned and now anything changes?
I think I learned. Yeah, I just learned to simplify. Those labels that I started were just labels. They were just the same babies with different names. And I just decided to consolidate and simplify. Sometimes we all tend to do too much. I'm impulsive sometimes. But I think what I went through a process in the last 3 years is consolidation. And today, I think that's really helped me run the business more tightly, compactly. And I think if my learning has to, in COVID also, in the last 4 months in the lockdown, has to be is to run the business as simply and as compactly as possible. To just keep it, the simpler it is and the more compact it is, it's easier to run it. When times are great and you're doing well, you tend to get scattered all over the place. So that's a tip to all of us entrepreneurs, that when things are really going well, that's when you really need to sit down and figure out and have systems that are really, really sharp and foolproof and just a smarter way of running, a more intelligently way of running the business. Sometimes you focus so much on the expansion bit that you go all over the place, and times like this make you realize that you need to run everything that you do more efficiently, and growth should not come at the cost of efficiency, because the more efficient you are, the better you are as a company.
Of course, one of the things that makes all of us, well, especially me being writing about Indian fashion, very proud about you, is that you opened that flagship store in New York. You were the first one. A lot of Indian designers have tried New York and even tried Paris and London and have not been successful. Have conquered New York in many ways. How important is it to have for an Indian designer to be international today? And do you think this is the time? Rahul just showed at Paris Fashion Week, at Paris Couture Week. Do you think this is a moment for Indian fashion?
Sujata, I would say with a large country like ours, and I've said this before, it's such a large country, India. It's one of the largest economies in the world. It's a country where every international brand wants to get into this country. So I always believe that no Indian designer should come under pressure of becoming global or going global. I think it's very important to first conquer your own market and first make a success of your own country and then think of venturing
You went
outside.
to New York after 18 years of being in India,
After,
right?
after, yeah, but more than that, I've been 30 years in the business, Sujata. So I would say I went to New York after literally 25 years of being in the business. And I think any designer has to first be successful in her own local market, especially in an economy like ours, which is growing and which every global brand wants to be a. First of all, why don't you try and make a success of your own? It's easier. It's very, very difficult to go global. You need to be of a certain size. You need to have investment. And we did that after all that happened, after GA invested in us, after we grew to a certain size. So I think everyone has to look within. You can't compare your business to someone else or your personality to someone else. You have to learn how to just be yourself and first capitalize on your own strengths first. And it's easier done here.
You've always been a very proud Made in India brand. You've always spoken about, being Indian. And of course, right now there's this huge drive for vocal for local. But I've spoken to a few designers, and some of the malls in Delhi and stuff have opened, and it seems to be it just is. I'm being told it's just noise, and that as people are still more attracted to international brands. Do you think part of the problem is that as Indians we need to be more proud of being wearing Made in India?
It's a double, I mean, it's an interesting question. Of course, Indians need to favor Indian brands, but they're not going to do that because then again, it's a free economy. They're not going to do that if your product doesn't match up. So I think it's also should also make Indian brands sharper in creating quality products which are well designed, great products. And that's important too, because no Indian is just going to buy something from you if it doesn't meet their let's say design standards or quality standards. And I again would like to say that there are Indian brands making amazing products, but I don't know whether you can force the consumer to buy local. I know there's this whole big buy local movement, and I support it completely, and the media is supporting it too. It's going to be up to each individual to decide where she's going to put her money when she's buying something. I mean, I would definitely, being a Made in India designer, appeal to everyone to say, please buy local, and this is your time to support your country's economy. I would definitely say that. But like I said, you can't force the consumer to do something they don't want to do.
A lot of the women here may be the head of their own Made in India brands and heads of Indian companies. Do you have any suggestions of how to make the consumer want to be more vocal for local? How do you connect to the consumer? You've done a great job, I have to say, during your social media. I know you did the whole Jab We Met campaign with on social media, but how have you managed to connect with the consumer and make them want to wear your Made in India?
I think a well-designed quality product, and I think the woman is very happy to buy it and own it. And yeah, that's it. And I think Indians should now start taking pride in wearing Indian, being Indian. I love the way, and I think that's happening. I love the way everyone's wearing more of the sari, more of the kurta. So that in itself, the more Indian you wear, you're giving back. The more Indian fabrics you wear, you're giving back. The more Indian textile you wear, you're giving back to your country. So in whatever way you can support Made in India, it's I mean, every bit of it is needed. Every rupee that the consumer spends is really needed in our country today.
I think you've really managed to connect during this time through your uses of the sort of social and digital media. I know you started by showing us everybody who's behind the brand and everyone with it. Then you moved into the Jab We Met campaign, where you talked about all the brides and grooms that have worn Anita Dongre. And now you're sort of moving on more to talk about the craft. And I know you personally look after your social media handle, and you're very, very connected in it. How important is it to use this time now to connect with humor? And how did you come up with all these wonderful, very empathetic ways of communicating?
Sujata, for me, design, every design that we create has so much of a story behind it. I mean, today, if I tell you, if we create a grassroots garment, there's so much stories. There are so many stories behind every garment. In grassroots, we usually work with artisan communities, and we don't work as seasonal collections. So I might just get a call, let's say, from Rima Ben, who runs Seva, and she'll pick up the phone and tell me, Anita, this cluster of artisans in this village, there are 100 of them, need work desperately. What can you send them? I'll immediately go to the drawing board, get in touch with my design team and say, okay, you know, the karigars who do this Ari stitch, because, you know, there are different stitches in every village in Gujarat, they need work. We'll all go on the drawing board, we'll figure out some designs and we'll send it to them. So there are such heartfelt emotional stories behind creating a grassroots garment that I always feel I need to tell that to the consumer. It's not just a garment. You're empowering a woman's life, you're changing somebody's life, and I need her to understand that, and which is why I give the stories of the artisans in grassroots, because you're impacting so many people by buying that garment. The wedding wear, when I tell the stories, because again, that's also so special. Weddings in India I've always said fashion for me is emotional more than anything else. Fashion is, of course, something that you wear. A design is something where you wear, but it also makes you feel something special. Whether it's a bridal garment on a bride's most special day, whether it's just anything that you're wearing, you feel good when you wear something that you feel happy in. And I think a lot of what we make has so many stories behind it, and I think it's time to tell those stories. Whether it's a bridal lehenga, which takes 3 months to embroider and goes from so many craft processes, to a grassroots garment, they're stories of India, and they must be shared.
And you have so many stories of India. When I speak to you, you know all about. I know you all know all about the tiger and Ranthambore, and you know all about Kutch, and you know all about the crafts in Gujarat. I mean, your knowledge it just overwhelms me every time I speak to you. Where do you get this knowledge from? And is it all from traveling, or how does someone become so in touch with Indian crafts as you have become?
I think you only learn when you travel. In fact, Assam, Janvi is on my list to go to for so many years. I think right from Kiran Gera to how many invitations I've got to Assam. And I don't know why that hasn't happened, because I'm an elephant lover too. So I've always wanted to come to Assam. But to all the other regions, Rajasthan, I've been traveling since a young child. Gujarat, I absolutely love, and I've gone there so often. I think when you travel into interior India, and our country is so beautiful, Sujata, I always say this, that I'm blessed to be born a designer, and I'm blessed to be born in India. And it's just travel, it's meeting these people, hearing their stories, it's just traveling. And now that is like a taboo word right now.
You can't do that.
Yeah, but I'm waiting. In fact, I was to go to Assam in October this year. I had decided in much earlier this year that Assam will be on my must-to-do list this year. But look, didn't happen. So I made so many plans for Assam and they never happened. And that's one state I'm really wanting to visit. My team has visited Assam. Last year when I was to go and I couldn't go, so the team went, but I still haven't made the trip. So hopefully it's travel. And I would tell all Indians, first travel in your own country. You know, I would tell everybody that take your kids to one unique place in India, show them the art, show them the crafts, show them the life in the village, show them how 80% of India lives.
I don't know if you know this, but when I moved here in the mid-90s, you told me to travel to one new place in India every year, and I have followed that advice. And thanks to you, I have, done everything from coffee picking in the south. And it was your advice. So you said to me.
I don't remember that, but that's great. I say that to everyone, especially take your kids, let them know India. Yes. You know, because what I really fear, Sujata, and every time I go to a village, I'm like, I don't know how long this will last. And honestly, that's a genuine fear. I don't know how long local food will last. I don't know how long local dress will last. I don't know how long it will last. Because now when I go to the villages of Gujarat, also, a lot of them don't wear their traditional costume. The girls have started going to school and the girls wear salwar kameezes. Their traditional lehenga choli, they feel embarrassed to wear that when they go to school. And they've started wearing polyester salwar kameezes, and nothing stresses me out more. I think it's so important that we all do something that we retain local culture, local food. So it's important to visit these places and show your children the beauty of India, because which other country in the world has it like we do?
I don't think anybody has The depth.
cuisine, the dress, the dialect, everything changes every few kilometers. And that's fascinating.
So where's the first place you're going to travel to when this is all over?
Maybe Assam.
Maybe.
Yes.
Yes, and Assam is in so much trouble right now, so we need to send a prayer and God bless. But yes, maybe Assam. It's long overdue.
Of course, you're a creative company that's steeped in crafts, but it's also what I think fascinates everyone about your company and why you were seen as almost the benchmark is the fact you were commercially so successful. I think this year you were, am I correct to say you were poised to turn the 1,000 crore?
Well, we're not going to meet this now because of this.
Correct.
We would have touched that figure, but not now. That's okay.
That's okay.
That's okay. It's just a number.
It's just, but to get to this figure and to get funding from a company like General Atlantic, and I know that at the time when the funding, you know, everyone knew they were going to look at a company in India, there were lots of companies that were hoping it was them, and it was you. And of course, they funded Tory Birch too. This is a company that really knows what they're doing. What do you think made you stand out? Why did you stand out?
I think when GA came and they wanted to invest in a fashion house in India, it just worked like really quickly. Is because my books were in complete order. They found us to be one Indian fashion house where everything was just, it was an impeccably run family company.
And it's
So
still
they
a
didn't think
family
twice.
company. I mean, you're professionally run, but I know your son joined 5 years ago, and Yash now is the business head of Anita Dongre. How do you manage to make sure that it's professionally run, but it's still so much of a family company? And I think the fact it's a family company keeps that heritage alive of what you believe in, your ethos.
Well, he started as an internee in the company, just like everyone else. He was treated just like any other employee in the company. He used to swipe his card when he walked in. He was never treated as my son, honestly. So he worked his way up and he's proved himself. And what I like about him is, what I really love about him and appreciate about him is he's as concerned about women empowerment and as concerned about sustainability in rural India as I am. And a lot of the efforts, you know, the first unit that we started in charity was actually Yash's initiative. It was one of his friends which has suggested it. And we had a meeting with Poonam Mahajan, and that's how we started our first rural unit in Maharashtra. So I like the fact that he is very balanced and he's, in the sense, very emotional and keeps people in mind in everything that he does. So, yes.
And I think you've stayed really positive. Every conversation I've had with you throughout lockdown has been very, very positive, and you credit very much the next generation for helping to keep you positive.
Yes, I have a psychologist, mental health daughter-in-law who makes sure that I wake up with a smile and go to bed with a smile. And she's a mental health consultant, and that's what she does all day. She's consulting people, and you know, she's been so busy during the lockdown because a lot of people have needed help to talk to. Yeah, it's positive, and it's important, I think, for all of us to surround ourselves with positivity. So at a time like this, you need to surround yourself with friends who are positive, with news that's positive, and just hope for the best.
So when things do reopen, are there any changes that we're going to see within the House of Anita Dongre, do you think? Is there anything that you feel that a design and creative now needs to focus on? I know handcrafts, but other than that?
I know, you know, in the last few years, I've been pretty focused on leading a very simple life personally, on living sustainably, converting the company towards a more sustainable path. This is the path I've been on for the last 4 years. So we'll just continue doing what we were going to do before and after lockdown. Our journey and our path doesn't change, but this is the path I was on.
Say this is a time of reset, rethinking. This is a time to change things around. How has it been for a company like yours, which is already on the path?
So we are justified in what we are doing, and we are. I mean, I'm a firm believer that what I set out to do a few years ago is the only way forward. But I'm hoping that this whole pandemic that the world has faced makes the entire world, and especially my consumer, become more sensitized, makes my consumer start living more sustainably, makes the consumer start questioning, where she's buying, what she's buying, why she's buying, and just makes her become more socially responsible, because that will go a long way if the consumer also becomes socially responsible.
I think for brands now, it is very important to be transparent and to be open to consumers to ask you questions, correct? That's a very important
Yes.
one who owns a brand right now, to, as you talked about, the story, the narrative, the workers, everything has to be transparent. Would you say that's that's like a key word for right now, transparency?
Definitely. Yes, definitely. Customers should ask questions and companies should be replying to those questions.
So we've spoken about all these fabulous, and your career has been so fabulous, and there's so much more to come. And I know you have really big plans for once all this is over. But any mistake, any fashion faux pas you've made over the years that you can share, because we all learn from our mistakes?
So many. I mean, when you look back at your work, there's some of the work that you love and you say, oh my God, this is so beautiful. And there's some of it and you look at it is like, oh, I could have done better. But I don't know. There's no one thing that comes to mind. We all make mistakes. We're all human. Is there any learning that I have in any mistakes? Lots. I'm sure with every mistake you learn. Is there any one mistake that comes to mind? Not really, Sujata. I don't know. I'm not someone who really lives in the past. I'm always looking ahead.
Yeah, you very much live in the moment. I think that's always been your thing. So your company really kind of proves that you can be creative, conscious, and commercially viable. So you can tick all the boxes, or it's been luck in your case, or do you believe it is?
See, you can. When Reema Ben of Seva came to me 5 years ago, and the reason I started Grassroots, she said, here are my artisans. They have a great craft, but what we make doesn't sell. So we're not relevant. So what did we come and do? We came in with design intervention and we made sure that the craft sells, and that's what is our job. So I think creativity and commercial has to go hand in hand, because if I'm creative and I use my creativity well and I create a product with a craft and the craft sells, is how I can put the money back and make something else more. It's a cycle, and you can't do that if you don't know what the consumer wants and what the woman of today wants to wear and how she wants to look. And that's so important, because we're designers who are making our designs to sell. I'm not a designer who's making designs to just hang in a museum. I'm making clothes that people should enjoy wearing. I'm creating happiness. I'm creating emotion.
Always really appreciate about it is almost your reality. You were one of the, I remember when Fashion Week and the whole Fashion Week system started, you didn't get into the whole doing the big show. It took a while for you, and you kept saying that stuff wasn't important to you.
No, I think just what's more important to me is the woman who buys my clothes and what my design does to her and how she feels in it. And I'm very grateful for all the feedback I get from everyone who wears my clothes and the lovely comments we receive on, that makes me happy. What makes me happy is making people happy with what I create. And then what makes me happier is the people who produce them who are also happy. So yes, just balancing both the maker and the person who wears it.
As I said, you've just done a fabulous job of balancing being creative, conscious, and commercial. And I'm sure all the women, you have many questions, but I'm going to ask a woman who is incredibly conscious and incredibly creative to start this conversation. May I invite our guest of honor to ask the first question, Janapi?
Thank you. That's been a fascinating story, moderated by Sujata, and there's so many learnings from Anita. Really, I salute you, Anita, because you put the person first. Before the profit, before anything else, you thought about the woman who's handcrafting, end of the day. So this the new consciousness that is now coming about the origin, where is it from? That is very important moving on, right? So we know that where is it coming from? And 1 second. So, and this is a great opportunity. I think it's fortunate that we are meeting now on this virtual net. And when Assam does open up, you must get in there, because, out of the 1 crore weavers in the country, the handloom sector has, Assam has the largest weaver household in the country, 10.9 lakhs. I just found out recently.
Yes.
And 77% are women, except for the commercial area where we have men, it's all women. So Anita, as the president and from the Northeast, please do come and help us to galvanize our women into organized, supply chain system, because they all have fabulous designs, but we are losing the plot somewhere.
I know.
Now with COVID, then we had that citizens car, the CAB, then the floods.
Yes.
The stocks are unsold, and there's a huge amount of work to do. In fact, I was at a webinar recently when Smriti Ranjanji spoke about Flow should come in to help with IIM Shillong we were talking about. What do we do now with the marketing linkage? We have the self-help groups, we have the National Rural Livelihood Mission. Women are producing. Now we don't have the linkage. We are all trying in our way, and I'm talking to everyone about it. So I will reach out to you in a different forum. So this is something we really need to take forward. We have. I
know even the IMG team has requested me, and I know Assam desperately needs design intervention, and I think many designers should go in, because this is not the job of one.
Yeah,
it's such a large state, and we need to galvanize maybe a whole team to go there and start working with them.
Yes, and so I will reach out to you for that, Anita, and so that's what I wanted to leave with you. That what you spoke about that Dekho Apna Desh, so resonating with everything that we do. I mean, we should just look inwards, look into our own country, and support each other, like you put forward. And
and probably start living how our grandmothers lived.
I think
slightly more simpler lives.
Absolutely.
I think all of us have learned lessons sitting at home from our grandmothers and our mothers, and I think it's amazing what all of us have learned.
I do think, Gandhiji's dream is coming true about go back to your own villages, go back to where you came from. And
also, I think as Indians, I don't know why we look at the West for everything, and I think we don't look inwards. And nothing angers me more than that, is that anything that the West does, we think cool, and actually, we have the history of our Vedantas, we have the history of sustainability, we have the history of this rich culture. And we all need to become so proud of what we are and who we are. And we actually can show the rest of the world that you can live sustainably. But I don't want us to go and make the mistakes of the West and then, start repairing those mistakes. I still think we're at a stage where if we all collectively take pride in what India is about, we can correct those mistakes and just go back into living like simpler lives, like take inspiration from the way the village people live, because they take so little from the planet. We take so much from the planet, and we don't need that much.
I think Priyanka's question falls very well here. She wanted to know, because we touched about your sustainable life. How do you lead a sustainable life?
So Priyanka, this lockdown, I told the whole house that let's create very less garbage. So we are trying to become a garbage-free house. I told them वो जो BMC की truck आती है ना हर हफ्ते, our goal is उसको हम कुछ नहीं देंगे. So we compost. We have a composting pit at home. We compost all the fruit and vegetable waste, and then all the I've got this amazing bag from Daily Compost, which is an amazing NGO in Bangalore. You can look them up on Instagram. And so we are now collecting all our plastic bottle waste, glass bottle waste, can waste. And I told them, ye feri wala ko denge. So we're trying to become a zero waste house. We're trying to get there. Anything that comes in a packet, I'm freaking out and saying, let's not buy. So we're trying to live a more simpler life. I tried to do a homemade shampoo. I've done a homemade liquid cleaner. So I'm trying in my own way to make sure that less packaging comes into this house, because we don't realize the amount we buy and the amount of packaging. If you just start looking in your kachre ka dabba, you'll see where you're going wrong. So in the house in the last 4 months, because I'm at home and otherwise I'm at work all the time, and we are very conscious of wastage in the factory. All our chindis go to NGOs, they get recycled. We're very, very conscious. And then I suddenly realized in the lockdown, I said, oh my God, I need to look in the house. We just had the composting pit, but now I made so many small changes. So we're getting there. Let's see. There's so much you can do in the house. We're using an eco-friendly detergent that the water can go into the garden. I have solar panels in the house anyway. I live in a reasonably sustainable house. It's not fully sustainable. We have air conditioning, which is not sustainable, but I try not to use air conditioning unless it's really hot. So there are so many small ways you can just, everything that you do is like, really, am I wasting? Am I wasting anything? Get rid of all the fancy packaging, get rid of so much of the clutter. If you just start becoming mindful, you'll see where the wastage comes. And then, like I said, look in your own waste paper basket at home and see how much waste you create, how much waste one family creates. It's scary.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that.
That's very true. I'm sure that Karishma, Wifelo Delhi's Karishma has a question. Can I ask Karishma to ask her question and unmute herself?
Please, Anita, I mean, we know you have your sister that's involved in the business with you, your brother's involved in the business with you as well, and it's amazing that Yash is joining you in the business as well now. Can you share with us some learnings and insights that you would have from working with your family, and how do you kind of keep this balance between, having a common vision and focus, but at the same time managing a family life as well? Anything that you can share with us out here?
Karishma, what I'm really fortunate is that my brother and my sister are, what do you say? We have the same purpose and the same belief. They believe my brother probably leads a more sustainable life than I do. He is an animal lover. He's lives literally like a Gandhian lifestyle himself. So I learn a lot from him. My younger sister is exactly the same. So our beliefs and our purpose is the same, and that makes it very simple. And luckily for me, Yash has grown up with us and has followed those same beliefs. Now that makes it simpler. How do I keep my professional and my personal life separate? Well, when we come to work, we put on our work hat, and then it's each one's designation, and we treat each other very, very professionally at work. And once work is over, we are back to being siblings, so we are back to being mother-son. And I think you have to compartmentalize it. But at work, it's extremely professional because we all have our separate designations, separate departments. Nobody really, it's very clear-cut, our roles and our responsibilities. And then we all work with a lot of professions in the company. So once you're in the company, we forget that we are siblings, or we forget about any relationship there. It's a very simple, clear cut. It's all about work.
Thank you.
It's fun. It's fun to work with family, and it's fun to work with people who share your purpose and your belief. And that's what I like. Even my CEO who's joined me a year ago, my CFO, I think subconsciously, even professionals that I'm choosing who obviously believe in my value system and believe in the purpose of the company. It's very important for everyone that you work with to be similarly aligned for it to be a success.
Anita, I know that you took a conscious decision a while ago to sort of hand over more of this stuff. And do you think when you start as a founder, and it was very much your baby, how difficult is it for you to give up a little bit of that control to someone?
It's difficult, Sujata. I must say that, when it's like you have your babies, and then, you're kind of, everything happens your way. And then when you're giving them over to someone else, in the first few months, you tend to be a little picky, but you just have to have faith, and you have to give it to professionals who are probably better than you. And I think it's just your ego that makes you think that I'm so good and whatever I do is the best. It's your ego. It's the right way to grow is to choose professionals who are just better at the job than you are.
Shweta has asked a very interesting question, and she asks, how do you think the business of fashion will change in the post-pandemic era?
I think it's going to become mindful. I think the consumer is going to become mindful. I think the makers are going to become mindful. And I'm just hoping it does, because that's the need of the hour.
And I have a question from Shalini, and she asks, is there one mantra from the Vedanta that you follow and will never let go of?
My God, there's so many readings. The Vedanta Treatise is a book which is on my bedside, and I read it literally every morning. I read a few pages from it. What is the one learning? I don't know. I would say I'm a karma yogi. And how do I explain that? I'm somebody who goes to work, and for me, work is my religion. And I try to do that as as effectively and as honestly as possible.
And how do you balance then that with, because I know you pretty much work 24/7, but before this, you're always working. How do you balance it with the family then?
No, I'm not always working, Sujata. I take a lot of time to be with family. I mean, yeah, I'm an introvert and I don't party that much, and I have a small circle of close friends, and I have my family. And I think I spend enough time with family. I'm balanced. I don't think I work all the time. Yeah. I sleep a lot. I sleep 9 hours. Now, who does that in fashion? Who does that in fashion?
9 hours is more than I think probably most of us sleep.
It's a joke in the family. Like, I need 9 hours of sleep.
That's very good. It's very good that you're managing to sleep even at these uncertain times. And what about the adaptation to technology? Because I know that we spoke about craft, but you've adapted really well to using technology. And of course,
I think we all have to. And my artisans have smartphones too.
Oh, wow.
I went to the village 2 years ago and I asked them, what can I do? Kya chahiye? And I thought I would be asked questions for some more basic necessity. And I was sitting with them and they said, all the ladies are asking for smartphones. Can you give them smartphones? I said, sure. So we sent some group leaders smartphones and it turned out amazing. And, whatever they're embroidering, they send me pictures. So I think technology is something everyone has to embrace. So I've always said it's my dream. The smartphone and the handloom should sit next to each other, and both should, you need both. Yeah. So today, most of our handloom weavers everywhere, they all have smartphones. And it's so amazing because as your design is being woven, you're seeing pictures. As it's being embroidered, you're seeing pictures. So technology is something that's here for all of us, and it should be used for good. And like anything else in life, it should be used with balance. I love to read up a lot about technology, and I like to stay abreast with what's happening because that's important.
I think what I really appreciate about you is how you manage to have all these traditions that come from our grandmothers and yet make them so relevant, and you're very agile and you use new technologies, and that's something I've always really appreciated about you. And I think right now we all love technology, and of course we're all connected to each other through technology. Before I go, I just want to thank you for doing this new age with us. I think it's been really informative. And I would like to ask our national president, Janavi, just to round everything up. And thank you, Anita. Thank you, Karishma, for inviting me. And over to you, Janavi.
Thank you, everybody.
It's been fascinating. And so many takeaways from what you said, Anita, about creating happiness, living simply, thinking about everyone else, carrying people along with you, keeping family together, working through COVID times. You've kept the bunch together and you've thought about the new ways to go about it. So there are especially the point that you've spoken about, which I think is very important, about the sustainability rating that our industry must have. All that fast fashion days are over. So you can bring that sustainable ranking into the industry. So people appreciate when they're buying. They know the origin of what they're buying, and they are mindful of their purchases. You are leading the way, Anita, for us. And I want to thank you for that. And on behalf of everyone here at Flow, we've all learned a lot today. We look forward to more interactions. And a lot of the learnings that we have taken, we should all imbibe in every facet of our life. To think about others, live simply, and care for people, planet, and profits.
Yes, and stay happy.
Yes, and stay happy. You are creating happiness everywhere. Thank you so much. It was a wonderful learning for all of us.
Thank you so much.
Anita, we've got some lovely comments that have come in from our members. I'm sure your team might have jotted down some of them, but they've had the most wonderful things to say about how your honesty, how genuinely spoken, how it's touched their heart, and beyond how much they've loved your design. Your entire 8,000 metal is really stood through, and I think everyone's really had a great takeaway. So our absolute thanks for that. And I'd like to just quickly invite my vice chairperson, Ridhima Khanna, wife for Delhi, to just give you a quick vote of thanks before we let you go. And
thank you.
Ridhima?
So I'd
Hi,
like
Ridhima.
Hi, Anita. I'd like to begin this vote of thanks by thanking our Flow National President, Janvi Phukan, for honoring us with her presence in today's session. Thank you so much, Janvi, for being there. And now, Anita, thank you for letting us into your world and most importantly, for taking us through it so honestly. I'm sure after this conversation, we are all going to think about how we can be more sustainable and how sustainability can begin so easily at home. Thank you, Sujata, for navigating this conversation absolutely perfectly. Keeping in line with today's conversation, at Biflow, we don't cut flowers. Instead, we plant a tree in your honor as a small gesture of our thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. And it goes perfectly with the conversation we've had
That's
today.
beautiful. Yeah, it's exactly what conscious gift.
So we will be sending across official green certificates to you with your name and details of the plantation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to all our members and to all of you for this conversation.
Thank you, and to lots of love and happiness to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. It was wonderful meeting you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.